What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Favale coming at you with an emergency-ish, since we waited a little bit, podcast. Mort Jensen of Yahoo Sports fame, of the NBA podcast fame, and of Forbes fame, as well as OnlyFans celebrity, is here to help me break down the Kevin Durant trade. He is headed to the Houston Rockets in exchange for Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, number 10, 5 second-round picks. We'll get into the details a little bit more in a second. Before we get started, you know I'm cranky about this trade. It was game 7 day of the NBA Finals. I know it happened with plenty of time beforehand, but I wanted to just kind of focus and bask in that, maybe for like a day or two. Like, let's have the Sunday to prep and then the Monday afterwards. But no. Mort, how the heck are you?
Doing well. Unlike you, I'm not a sour thing who is like all bent out of shape. Like, more action on NBA Finals Day. Let's go. It's fine.
Spread it out. We're going to be sitting here one day in August lamenting that like we don't have anything to talk about, so we're going to relitigate the
Do you really want an August Durant trade?
Yeah. Hell, I'm the type of person that likes to keep busy. So like the monotony of the offseason at points can get to me. So
Right.
But this is just like also it's Kevin
that's
Durant
the
was
American
traded.
in you talking. Like, this is where we differ so greatly. I'm so European, it comes out my ass. Like, August is just that is holiday. Don't fuck with my holiday. Give me all the news now, and I'll take a month off.
Yeah, I mean, congratulations to you for getting a month off. That doesn't happen around here. At least not for me. Which no complaints. I do love what I do most of the time. Let's dig into this trade though, because I think we're going to have some differences of opinion on it. So the details for anyone who might be living under a rock. The Houston Rockets are getting Kevin Durant. He has a year and $54.7 million left on his contract. The Suns are receiving Dillon Brooks. He has 2 years and $43.1 million left on his deal. Jalen Green, 3 years and $103.5 million remaining. That's an extension, his rookie scale extension that he's going to begin next season. He has a player option for that third year in 2027, 2028. They're also getting the number 10 pick, which was also their own pick, so they could have had it in addition to 5 second-round picks. We're going to end up starting with the Suns, but I just want your initial like knee-jerk reaction to when you saw this package kind of trickle out, because the destination, we kind of had a feeling it was going to be Spurs or Rockets, maybe the Heat. What did you end up just thinking when you saw the final like details of everything?
The number one thought I had was, oh, that's fitting. And the reason I went to that immediately was because a couple of weeks ago, I wrote a piece over at Yahoo where I basically said, don't overpay for Kevin Durant. Like, I love the guy. He's still obviously elite, but he's going to be 37. There's going to be an end date to like for how long he's going to be elite and how long he's going to even stay in the league. So for me to read, the relinquished package, that just fell perfectly aligned to what my own expectations were about him and my own evaluation. So to me, it was like, oh yeah, that's solid.
I think this probably ended up being a little less than I was expecting, but I was not in the camp of, we looked at it, I think, a lot from the vantage point of the Spurs, where it's, no, you're not trading Steph Castle or number 2 to get Kevin Durant about to turn 37 in the final year of his contract. I probably thought that, I guess I don't know what I was expecting, but it was probably at least a little bit more than this, or at least a return that I deemed more coherent for Phoenix. And that's where I just kind of want to start here, is so the Suns. You wrote a little bit about this already. Just where do you have Jalen Green, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker now on the same books, $140+ million just owed to pure shooting guards. That goes up if you don't consider Dillon Brooks a wing. They're actually taking on money as part of this deal before I throw it to you, because of the number 10 pick hold, and also Green and Brooks make more than Kevin Durant. I think Green also has a trade kicker in there. So they're going to get out of the second apron. They're more than $20 million into it right now. That does include number 10, the prospective bonuses and kickers, as well as non-guaranteed deals for like Micic and Cody Martin. So waiving those two guys can immediately get you very close to getting out of the second apron. What do you just like? What are your impressions of Phoenix accepting this return? Do you think it was they really didn't have any other options? They were kind of boxed into this, or I don't know what to make of it, because I do not like this return for them.
And that's fair. I think I said this could be a win-win. And the way I view a win-win in this situation is they get the number 10th pick. That's going to be additional flexibility moving forward in terms of having a cost control asset who might be, outplaying his contractual worth. You also get younger in terms of Jalen Green. I know he's another shooting guard, and you have 3 of them, but perhaps they are planning to reroute him. Perhaps down the line they can do something with Bradley Beal. I just don't hate that contract getting in there. I know that I'm not high on him in particular. I know you aren't either. But we also have to appreciate the fact that he does produce at a young age. Like, he does take and make a lot of threes. He is a guy who can get you a certain level of production. But the Dylan Brooks inclusion is one I really like for Phoenix specifically. I think he just kind of fits that mold. I think he fits also into something that they needed. They didn't have that dude who was just kind of barking through everything and who just kind of sets the tone defensively. I thought Phoenix this season just came in with this very lackadaisical, almost borderline lazy mentality defensively. That is going to be ramped up by a pretty fair magnitude, I think, with the inclusion of Brooks. So I don't hate it. Like, could there have been better deals out there? Potentially. I guess we'll find out at some point. But knowing that Miami basically didn't want to give up anyone, if the reporting is true on that, it also made me feel like, oh, okay, perhaps the Suns were just like the best offer. The Rockets were just the best offer for KD. But I do think the number 10 pick, that's the biggest selling point for me, because I love that area of the draft. Like, if Kaman Maluach, for example, if he drops to 10, hell yes, that's a great get. Colin Murray-Boyles as well, great get. Like, why is
Maluach a great get?
Oh, I love him. He's one of my favorites.
What does he do differently from a prototypical big man? What is it that you trust that he does different than?
So I think there's spacing upside there. I don't think he is just a guy who's like a rim runner. I trust the shot. We saw the free throw rate was. Oh, you disagree? I sense.
Here's my thing.
Okay.
Maybe he has a spacing, but it's going to be more of a party trick. He's not doing it in volume. He's not coming in here and being a floor. No, he's not. There's nothing about his profile that suggests that he's going to do that. That just seems like
right.
Murray. Totally, I'm with you on Colin Murray-Boyles. But like, if that's like if they end up drafting a center at number 10, that's just going to be an all-time fumble to me.
Just because of the position.
The position, if you want, I need something with more scarcity coming in here as part of that number 10. So if there's a center who actually spaces the floor on more than like Jonas Valanciunas volume per game, then you can come talk to me.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I think he's going to scale up more than that. I think there's going to be like a Brook Lopez type of situation in there down the line, and not where you don't have to wait a decade or however many years it was for Brook to get that shot. I think we're going to look at a couple of years, and then he's right there. I'm very, very high on Maluach, so that's why I have him in there, and as a major win. Again, it comes down to how you evaluate these guys, but you and I can at least agree on Colin Murray-Boyles. Him at 10, hell yeah! Like, I wouldn't hate that. That's a
him and Brooks and Dunn defensively. Yeah, that's a nice little trio right there.
There's a lot to like there. So the number 10 inclusion, and just also, like I said before, what that gives you contractually, major bonus. The 5 seconds, it's nice. It's not something that moves the needle necessarily unless you do good in the draft, which Phoenix historically is not a team that really wants to get into that. But I just don't think it's as egregious as people make it out to be. And if there's a trade lined up for Jalen Green at some point later this summer, okay, then let's reevaluate if that happens.
So a few things. And I think, the seconds are like, those are things that more bites at the draft apple or just sweeteners you can include to get other deals over the hump. I think what you mentioned that's very important is we kind of need to see. I know the reporting was initially that they plan on keeping Jalen Green, and that's just, we know how that works. Shams tweeted they get a prolific scorer. Jalen Green has had moments. He's had stretches. There's nothing that makes me believe that this is someone they actively prioritized getting as an asset they hope to reboot. I also recognize, though, that the two things that I think are also true, you make this trade independent of saying, oh, we have Bradley Beal on the roster. That's just, you're saddled with the no trade clause. So I'm not going to get too caught up in the shooting guards of it all, although it is a lot of money worth of shooting guards.
It is.
I also firmly believe that teams are not in the business of accepting worse offers on the table. And so to me, I took this read as Miami didn't want to include anybody. and you decided this package of 10 Green and Brooks was better than 14 Sohan, Johnson, and Barnes from San Antonio. And I think
Did they
that is
put Sohan on the table? I thought Phoenix
whether
wanted
they did
Sohan.
or didn't, I think saying I'd rather have number 10 and Dylan Brooks and Jalen Green, like versus that, either way you want to cut it, I think that's a reasonable stance to take.
Yeah.
What I take issue with here are two things. And I know Suns fans probably won't like rooting for Dylan Brooks, but like they absolutely need a player like that.
Right.
I'm going to start with the trade itself because of the return. The arbitrary cutoff of the draft or before the draft, I firmly believe that undercut the return on Kevin Durant in the sense that look at the circumstances. You had what is, as of right now, the single biggest trade prize on the market at a time when there's very little cap space, very little free agent talent, but you kind of pigeonholed yourself into saying, well, we need to do this by the draft. Whereas if you would have waited, I'm not saying you needed to wait until August, but had you waited, okay, you don't get to choose which 2025 prospect you're going to get when pick X is on the clock. My response to that is, who the fuck cares? Because number 10 or number 9, if you were going to go the Toronto route, those were the highest selections you were ever going to get. That's not, in all likelihood, going to change the course of your franchise. And so I just don't understand why put yourself in a situation where you've given yourself even less leverage at a time when teams already knew you didn't have a ton of it because you already tried to move Durant in the middle of the year, and you know that he kind of now wants to leave. He even said it afterwards. He was at Fanatics Fest or whatever the fuck it's called and said, oh, Suns fans didn't want me there. Now we both get what we want. I think I know it sounds stupid and small, but I think that the mindset of we need to do this before the draft was beyond dumb. And I'm not saying that they would have gotten, had they waited, the Spurs come in with Steph Castle and all this stuff. No, that doesn't happen. But there's a chance another team gets desperate. And I look at this and say, you're going to tell me this package would not have been available to you had you waited until after the draft? I call BS
absolutely
on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely, that would have been available. And I think that is the primary criticism here. Absolutely. We're looking at an ownership group that doesn't seem to be understanding the benefits of patience. New owner syndrome is absolutely still setting in. We want to get things done. We want to get them done quickly. And yeah, like you said, there could be a team out there who might have anticipated a certain level of summer, may not have realized those expectations, and would have sat there looking at each other going, fuck, what now? In which case, someone could have said, KD. The other one would have said, oh, all right. And then would have outbid whoever else had an offer on the table. So yes, arbitrary deadlines are dumb.
The other issue I have, and this ties into the Matt Ishbia of it, is what do you view, and I'm not going to answer my own question, but I have some follow-up to this. What is the Suns' direction after this? Because there's just now this troubling pattern of impatience and incoherence ever since Matt Ishbia took over. It starts with the first Kevin Durant trade, where they didn't negotiate. It's not they didn't negotiate. They just kept giving the Nets stuff, even though they were the only team on Kevin Durant's list. They then jumped right into Bradley Beal. They didn't figure out a way to keep Tamani Kamara as part of the DeAndre Ayton trade. They Horcruxed a bunch of their pick swaps, but that 2031 pick that they sent out for 3 lesser selections that kind of enabled them to then turn around and dump Nurkic at the deadline, and you got Cody Martin back as part of that deal. And then you have this Kevin Durant thing to where it's another form of impatience. This has to get done by the draft. I don't feel confident that even if I knew what their direction was, I don't feel confident in the guy who's running ultimately everything. I know Brian Gregory's in charge of the front office now. I know Jordan Knott's the head coach, but I don't feel confident in this team actualizing whatever direction it's choosing. Yep. But I don't even know what the direction is. But like I thought I would look at a Kevin Durant trade return and at least kind of understand what the end game was when looking at it all. Now, if it was the Spurs, you're kind of looking at some shorter term contracts and like Harrison Barnes coming off the books. So maybe they're trying to angle themselves for flexibility. But I don't look at this package as something that clarifies anything to me for them.
No, it definitely muddies the water a little bit, because if you were thinking that they're going to try to accelerate in some way or like try to be competitive or go for the whole shebang next year, they just got significantly younger which means they're either trying to load up for the future, but at the same time, they also got Dylan Brooks in, who is by definition a win now player. So it feels like they're trying to have a foot in each camp. And like you, I don't know which one they're trying to leaning on the most. I would prefer personally they would scale back a little bit and say, okay, it's not going to be this year or next year. Let's see what we can do. Can we build something sustainable around Devin Booker over the next 18 months or so? And then let's see if we have something where we can make a push.
What's the pathway to that? I'm sorry to interrupt, but I guess that's what I'm like. What is the pathway?
That's probably
to what
the
you
end
just
of
outlined?
Yeah. So I said 18 months. Let me just look at it because it would be after the Bradley Beal trade. So that's or trade the contract. So that's actually 2 years, right? That's
So what age? What is that? Age 31, Devin Booker, or is it how old is he going to be at that point?
30, I think. Right?
Okay, that's not. But it's also just sort of. It's the same thing when we get into like the Nuggets with Jokic and the Bucks with Giannis. It's okay. The youth part of their prime is over. So yeah, Devin Booker.
I don't think at any point that a Kevin Durant trade was going to solve that though. I think regardless,
that's fair.
Yeah, like they'd fucked up a while ago, right? Like I don't think there was a saving grace in there. Like the Devin Booker situation is always going to be very, very fluid because of their long list of decisions. To their not to their credit, to their benefit, Book seems hell bent on retiring as a Sun. Like he it seems like he does not want to leave that franchise, and if that offers them some type of leeway, if that offers them a time frame where they can say, okay, like let's take those 2 or 3 steps back forward so we can actually build something more sustainable, something more fitting. I don't really know what the description is that fits around Book to a greater extent, then we can do that. But again, like I agree with you. We don't know what the hell they're trying to do. We don't really know what the direction is. Those are all very, very fair points.
And even, you frame it as, taking a step back and building something sustainable. Like, I guess you're just banking on, okay, the number 10 pick, Osei Godara, Ryan Dunn, like that's your developmental projects. And then like these sort of end of the first round bites at the apple that you'll have in the coming, because the whole taking a step back just rings so hollow when you don't control your own draft picks.
Right.
And that's the situation they're in until 2032. So I understand the Kevin Durant trade was never going to solve that. And I think Suns fans, it seems like, just wanted Kevin Durant off the team, which is fair. Like he's one of the best basketball players of all time, and also just seems like a killjoy. Just wherever he goes, it feels like the vibes just get worse. I don't know him personally, but that's just how it seems from afar. So I get that impetus. I just really feel like they're like, and even here, it's, well, how do you trust yourself to develop the number 10 pick if you're still trying to make immediate noise in the West? I guess I'd feel better about maybe any trade if you sat here and told me the Suns are willing to kind of, you remember that Nets team, like after the Kevin Garnett trade, that whole thing, they kind of had to rebuild without their own picks, and they were resigned. They had to be bad without having the payoff for a while. I don't think this Suns team is going to do that. And then I also if the plan is we're hoping that Jalen Green just establishes himself and that's someone we could move later on, I think the context of this team makes it a little harder to bank on him increasing. Now, Devin Booker's immediately the best offensive player he's ever played alongside, and that's with all due respect to Alperen Şengün. So maybe that opens things up for Jalen Green, but it's just, I don't understand anything. But to your point, the alternative, aside from waiting, which I think is the big cardinal sin here, I think they just should have waited. Were you just running it back with Kevin Durant, and then he might leave in free agency for nothing next summer? I recognize that you couldn't do that either. I just feel like they found a way to make an unwinnable situation even more unwinnable, which is honestly impressive.
Oh, so you think they're in a worse situation out right now?
No, I don't think they've improved their situation aside from, Kevin Durant, if the vibes were off, now that's gone. I don't think that they've improved. Like, do you think they're a better basketball team next season?
No. I was asking you because I wasn't sure like what you were trying to argue there on that front.
I guess it's a circuitous way of me getting to a point of saying because we don't understand the plan, I don't think they're any better off after this trade, like long term. I think you would have to believe, okay, that number 10 pick is going to do something, because even Dylan Brooks is like, okay, he's got 2 years left on his deal.
Mm-hmm.
You juxtapose that against, well, what else did you want? I'm referring to myself in the third person. What else you want them to do, Dan, if these are the best offers out there? And so I'm really clinging to the idea that they probably should have waited. But I think there's just the way that even if we remove the veil of they had all these other options, the way that they went about having little to no leverage makes me feel even worse about what they're going to do like after this transaction. That's probably the best way to nutshell it.
That's fair. That's fair. I think for me, I just can't sit here and say, are they better or not? Because I don't think they're done. I don't think, like, if they make this the primary move of the season and there's really no other movement within the roster outside of making that draft pick,
ducking the second apron,
ducking the second. If that's the case, oh boy, then we can talk about it. But I kind of consider that they're in the middle of trying to make a cake, not a good cake. We all know it's going to be pretty shitty. But like I can't imagine that this current iteration is what they're looking for. That's also why in the piece that I wrote at Yahoo, I was like open to the idea of them pivoting off Jalen Green, because I wouldn't be surprised if that was the thing. Like NBA off seasons, as we know, can get very, very weird and very quickly. Sometimes a situation just opens up and there you go. You can find some team needs a shooting guard. They need someone with upside, whoever. Boom, there's your guy. And they might be able to get something for him. I just thought they opened themselves up to potentially gaining more future flexibility than they could have had with Durant. And honestly, that's all I was expecting really from their point of view, because I did not think that Durant would fetch like a wild haul.
No, I was with you on the haul, the level of haul that he was going to fetch. I think what would signal to me that maybe they are going about this the right way is, okay, do they then turn around and trade? You know, we talked a lot about Jalen Green, but like you probably get first round pick for Dylan Brooks at least. Mm-hmm. And so if we saw something like that, and I guess I'm also having trouble envisioning, okay, what's the team that's going to come and talk themselves in to Jalen Green? Like, what is the trade out there that would make sense for everyone involved in either position Phoenix to be more flexible, to get more draft equity, or just have someone who's a better fit for the roster? So I recognize that Brian Gregory and co are in an incredibly tough situation. I just don't think they made it any easier on themselves. And to this point, as you said, there's more offseason left to go. I don't have confidence that they're going to make the right calls. And I think it's also a lot of the stuff you're laying out is predicated on, okay, Jalen Green having value, or other players when you're talking about other moves. Like, okay, can you get something for Royce O'Neal? You had Grayson Allen, when I mentioned his name on one of our other podcasts the other day, you damn near fainted. So it's just, I'm very curious to see what other moves they're actually capable of pulling off with what's left in place. Because this is why it's so disheartening before we move on to the Rockets. Kevin Durant, that was your last bullet of just like, this is going to be the player, the vehicle through which that we are able to bring back assets and materially change our course, our direction. And I guess you were always kind of consigned to, oh, it's going to be underwhelming. This just somehow I really thought that they would have got, like, I guess I didn't think they were going to have to take back any deals I envisioned as being a net negative while only getting one first round pick. I guess that's where I'm coming from, where it's because I view Jalen Green's as, yes, he's young. Could he get better? Sure. But I don't view that contract at $30+ million a year. And then also, by the way, with very little upside, because if it all works out, guess what? He's going to be a free agent in 2 years anyway and just get more expensive. I guess that's what I'm struggling to wrap my head around here the most.
And that is totally fair. I actually looked at his contract as being a positive in the sense that if he didn't pan out, okay, you can actually get out of it pretty soon, right? At the worst, that's a 3-year contract that at maximized, and presumably you can flip him in year 2 or whatever. Like, he's not at a level financially speaking where I'm super against or very hardcore think that he's like the most overpaid player in the league. Like, yeah, is he overpaid for what he's done so far? Yes, I do concede that. But the cap is also climbing a fair bit. He's still young. I do anticipate him getting better, because if there's one thing I do think is true about him is that he works freaking hard. He's been in a system that doesn't really had a lot of spacing, and where offense has been more of an afterthought. It's always been like the defensive focus. I would just like to see him somewhere else, because I do think there could be something there. If there isn't, yeah, it's going to suck pretty bad. But I just had no expectation of Phoenix solving damn near anything this summer anyway. I do honestly think that if the Suns
Ambition is
want,
the enemy of success. You hit it.
right,
You hit the nail right on the head.
but I do think overall, like the Suns feel inevitable in the sense that this is going to blow up in their face regardless of what they basically got back for Durant. I think the big chip is Book. But like they're not gonna flip him. He doesn't want to get flipped. Like he wants to stay. They're like, oh yeah, cool. You're the heart and soul of the team. We want to keep you. But like he's the guy. Like he's the bullet you were referring to. Honestly, he's the last bullet. It's just a bullet they're not going to pull the trigger on at any given point. And until they get smarter and realize that might be it. Yeah, like the best thing you could do is what I said before. Take a step back and cross your fingers, close your eyes, and hope for the best.
I do think. I mean, maybe we should question Devin Booker's own decision making if he wants to. He does clearly want to be in Phoenix, which I like partly admire, mostly admire, and think is really cool. And then I'm sort of like, if you're looking around, Book, like what is the future here that you see?
I will say this. Having spent some time in Phoenix a couple years ago, that's a nice place. That's a really nice place. Like if you just look at it from a geographical perspective and the weather and like, oh, I mean, I understand that perspective. If he's like, you know what, if my focus is getting paid and, you know, I'll make Team USA and I can win gold medals here and there. I don't need to win a championship. I can stay in this gorgeous weather in this city. Yeah, look, more power to him.
On the Rockets front, I think this is just this is like a perfect trade for that. Like, I don't know what I would quibble over. Okay, you gave up the number 10 pick, but you didn't have room for the number 10 pick in your rotation anyway. And it amounts to a 3-for-1. But I think what I would feel most uneasy, because Kevin Durant comes in, replaces, not everything Jalen Green does, just because like he's going to be a little bit shiftier on the ball than KD, especially with KD getting up there. But you got someone who's a more reliable scorer, and he doesn't need to monopolize the ball. I think the most uneasy aspect of this would be, all right, you gave up Dylan Brooks, who was a pretty big part of your team, but then it's, all right, well, we just have Tari Eason and Cam Whitmore and Amen Thompson. I mean, Amen Thompson and Eason specifically, where it's like the defense won't suffer at all.
Yeah. I'm so glad you just said Cam Whitmore. I'm so high on that dude. And I think for them, I saw someone mention like, oh, who are the Rockets going to start at shooting guard? Like, he's right there, guy. Like that. I don't even think the drop off from Jalen Green to Cam Whitmore is necessarily a negative. Like they just opening up minutes for him at 2. That's a fantastic situation to be in. I presume that they're going to decline the team option on Fred and then sign him to a longer term deal at less money per year. So we'll see what happens there. But if it's Fred and it's Whitmore and then it's whatever combination, I guess it's Thompson and KD at the fours or at the forwards, and then Şengün at center. That's a pretty potent starting lineup. And then you still have Tari and Reed Shepherd, Jabari. God, there's just no downside to this trade for their perspective.
No, there's legitimately none. It's their biggest problem was shooting and half court offense in general. Kevin Durant just comes in and does. If he isn't the antidote to all of that, he addresses a lot of it. And I think my biggest question about their offense now, but this could also just be a bet on the continued development of Amen Thompson, of Alperen Şengün, my guy Reed Shepherd. Like that's someone who do minutes open up for him a little bit. Like you don't have Jalen Green there anymore. And so you're kind of you haven't necessarily increased your offensive depth with this trade. You've gotten an upgrade, and now now we need to explore some of these other options. So it feels very close to zero risk. You would have to bet that Jalen Green's going to turn into a perennial All-NBA player to kind of, or number 10, the Suns draft the next Giannis Antetokounmpo or somebody. But just given the situation, the rotation as it was, doing 3-for-1 almost does Houston a service because it allows you, okay, now we need to see what we have in Cam Whitmore, more Reed Shepherd. I do think you probably could look at this team just because Kevin Durant is not that type of playmaker, and that was sort of an issue last year was, all right, do they still kind of need that player? Or again, that brings that, and I'm saying this with a straight face too, is it just Reed Shepherd time? Just with Jalen Green out the door, you should be able to find more minutes for Reed Shepherd. And so
Yeah,
if
you
you
should.
believe, you invested a number 3 pick in him. If you believe him, maybe he'll have a strong summer league. If you believe in him, this is someone who could play minutes for you. And then it's all of a sudden, okay, his job gets a lot easier. The spacing's better. You have the ultimate safety valve in Kevin Durant on top of having Van Fleet. Another year of progression from Amen Thompson, Şengün, even Jabari Smith Jr. And I think this is, for all the, faults and foibles or curiosities of KD, he is one of the single most scalable superstars in NBA history. Where you put him on a team, and even if the vibes are off, even if you feel like they're not tapping into their full potential, it's just going to work. And by the way, like his rim protection numbers the past couple of years have been insane. And so it's just like, did this team their perimeter defense maybe gets a little iffier without Dillon Brooks there, but it's just they have so many different fun lineup structures they can run out now. And just most of their lineups are going to be super huge. Like if you're starting Şengün, KD, Amen Thompson, and then you have what to choose from there. Like, is it going to be Tari Eason? Is it going to be Jabari Smith Jr.? You have the Steven Adams lineups that can come in. Like playing 2 centers now even gets a lot more palatable because of what KD can do on offense. There's just so much more lineup flexibility with this team, and they're, they kind of hovered around the fringes of contention last year, but I think that in the immediate, there's probably a longer term discussion to be had. Like Durant pushes them to me like very close, if not inside the inner circle of title contenders for next season.
Pending availability, yes, I agree. Because I do think that's a factor. And he's getting older, and when you're older, at least 36, 37, as he's going to be, there are going to be some durability questions that just pops up here and there. This isn't to talk the trade down from their perspective. I still think, yeah, when this is what you relinquish, you pull the trigger immediately. Of course you do. But I do think we need to safeguard ourselves a little bit. How outside of last season when he played 70 plus, how many 70 plus seasons has he had since returning from the Achilles tear? Is that the one?
Did he even have a 70 plus season? Oh, yeah, he did in 23, 24, he played 75. I mean, he did, to his credit, he did 62 last year and then had that ankle injury towards the end. So
yeah, that's fair. That counts almost. Okay. But that's something I'm just putting it in the back of my mind a little bit. And perhaps, look, with Thompson there, with Eason there, with Jabari there, perhaps the plan isn't to play him damn near 37 minutes per game. Who knows? Perhaps this is the year where he plays 30.
That is the other thing too. It's just the past 2 seasons. So 36.5 minutes last year and then 37.2 in the season before that. That's a lot of just for someone who admittedly and this could be also a concern for Houston to where it's just he's not the same player when it comes to attacking with the ball or if he has to face double teams. And that's not an insult. He's going to be 37 and is still probably he would have made All-NBA last year had he never gotten injured. That's you got a star. Kudos to the Rockets. So yeah, I'm with you. The availability is certainly a factor. And then do you have any question about, okay, well, how high does he actually elevate the ceiling on their half court offense given the player he is now?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not particularly worried about that aspect of him. What I'm more worried about is what you actually outlined earlier. Wherever he goes, people tend to get bummed out. I wonder if there is a vibes thing or something that's something I question more so than, what's his effect going to be on the half court situation? It's Kevin freaking Durant. He'll be fine. He can.
Well, I meant will it be enough was more so, not will
it. Yeah, I get that. But given his age and given his output, I mean, this dude can take every possible shot, and you'd feel oh yeah, that's a good shot, right? Pull up threes, spot up threes, snaking the pick and roll, and getting into the Hesse, driving, getting to the foul line. There isn't a single offensive area on the floor where I'm no, KD, that's a bad shot. So I feel as though pretty safe in just bringing him in there. It's the teammates around him. Can Şengün become a better 3-point shooter? I think becomes even more crucial now. Honestly,
do you think they should trade him and then draft Malawach just to ensure that they have that floor spacing element at the 5?
You suck.
Sorry, I had to get that one in there.
You know what? I'm gonna put a pin in that because if Malawach starts hitting 2 threes a game in a couple of years' time, I am going to come right back and just
What is
yell at you for 5 minutes.
we need to have a conversation though about what is the volume threshold you need to hit to be considered an actual like a floor spacing ad, not as just because what you're talking about is based at the position. Okay, it's more valuable, but it's just basically cool. Josh Giddey just went 3 of 5 from 3 for 8 consecutive games. Defenses don't care.
Right. No, let's actually.
Oh, but
Well,
can I
not
just
for this podcast, but let's take a discussion on that at some point.
right?
I think
and
it's
I
two.
Do you the vibes thing? I totally agree with the only saving grace, but I think you could argue, okay, like, well, then what really didn't Golden State in theory have a really strong locker room? I just refuse to believe that any team with Steven Adams on it can actually have a vibes killer because he's just like the panacea to all that.
Yeah,
and I firmly
that's fair.
believe they knew Kevin Durant was coming, and that's why he got his extension as quickly as he did. The king of never hitting free agency, Steven Adams, is also the single most valuable player when it comes to integrating Kevin Durant into the Rockets culture.
But to answer your question, no, I'm not really worried about him in the half court. Like, I do think there are a lot of young players on this team, and I wouldn't hate if some are rerouted. Like, I know you're higher on Jabari Smith Jr. than I am.
Well, we need to have that discussion, by the way, because there's I want to ask you about the Kevin Durant thing, but like Kevin Durant, extension eligible, Jabari Smith and Tari Eason extension eligible, Cam Whitmore and Amin Thompson are going to be coming up. Like, what is, you're mentioning move. I'm not saying they have to. I want to make this clear, Rocks fans. They don't have to do anything. What they could do is just roll into the season like this and maybe win the fucking title. That's what could actually happen.
Yeah, correct.
But like, this is something to it was something to put a pin in before you had this. But Kevin Durant, if he signs the max, so 2 years between 122 and 124 million, depending on when he signs it, that's like 2 Jalen Greens per year. It's close to it. It's a little bit less than 2 Jalen Greens. I think, and I do think the name you mentioned was spot on. Jabari Smith kind of felt like, well, look at what they did with Şengün and Adams. They have Amin Thompson. Eason's a little bit more plug and play. So like
a lot more plug and play, if you ask me.
Yeah, fair. Offensively, definitely just more plug and play because he doesn't need any on-ball usage, basically. So you're right. A lot more
defensively,
plug and play.
he just causes havoc. I freaking love Tari Eason.
I think Jabari Smith Jr. is probably an underrated defender, but I can't argue with you. Doesn't Jabari Smith Jr. kind of still feels like the odd man out here? And that's not to say they need to rush to move him. It's you could let him hit restricted free agency, see what the market says. But yeah, I'm sorry, I'm reading a breaking news tweet from Shams. Dallas Mavericks assistant Sean Sweeney has agreed on a deal to become the associate head coach of the Spurs. I was like,
let me go.
Yeah. The Spurs already hired another head coach. So that's why I was distracted during that little incoherent ramble. But yeah, I don't know what to make of I think you can go into the season like this and be absolutely fine. Just long term, I'm very curious to see who separates themselves from whom and who becomes the priority.
It's a good question. What do you think right now is their biggest position of weakness?
I still think that they need a floor general.
Yeah. So like a guard.
Like a Kobe, not even a Kobe. I think, honestly, because you have Durant, Kobe White would be fine here. I want to make that clear. But I think you need more of like someone who's going up against a set defense and has that pass first mindset, where that's not.
I mean, that salary fits almost like a T.
But is Kobe White he's more of a score first guard? I think they need someone who's going to manage the game for everybody else a little bit better. Maybe like a Josh Giddey. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
I mean, okay, but like, I wouldn't hate exploring the trade market for Jabari and like seeing what's out there and just telling teams like we're looking for someone to handle the ball, someone to make decisions. I
have a name.
That guy. Yeah, go.
I don't know if he's the perfect one, but it would fit the Ime Udoka ethos. Could this still be a Derek White team?
Oh, that's interesting.
Or is he not enough of he's more of a like connector passer, but I guess if you look at it and say, well, you have Şengün, you have Fred VanVleet.
Right. Is
maybe
he
you're
that
giving
much
up
better of a playmaker than Kobe White?
Derek White?
You see, like,
when it comes
I know
to,
he's better, but is he that much better?
So the decision making, yes. But if it's coming to you need to break down a set defense, I don't know what to think of. Well, we've kind of already seen what Derek White might look like outside the confines of Boston spacing. I think that's a big element to Derek White's playmaking, but there's also just, in terms of just off the catch and making like the quicker decisions, I'd trust him more. That's why I said I don't know if that would be the right name, but it would really be an interesting name.
Yeah. I'm trying to think because I would want someone who can also like call their own number a little bit. There's a
Ty Jerome, free agent.
Ty Jerome would be fun. I was actually thinking if they could call up Memphis and Cole Anthony, but like Cole Anthony, he's too offensively not weird, but like I actually think there's a good player in there, but like it's only like half the time where he plays the right way in a sense. Like he's just too volatile.
I don't think he's enough of just a table setter for others.
Right. Yeah, and that's
what about you mentioned? How about another Grizzly? What does it cost to get Scottie Pippen Jr. from Memphis?
Oh, that's nice. He's on a min deal if memory serves, right? Or
yeah. So yeah, he's like he has 2 years left at like the cheapest rate possible.
Right. I'm betting they would ask for draft compensation.
And rumor has it that Houston has some that it could give up.
And that's not a bad name actually. I like that. We know he can facilitate. We know
he's got 3 years left on him. I mean, they'll probably do, whoever has him, I'm assuming will do the thing where you like decline his team option and he becomes or no, is this not even his first deal? I can't. Regardless, he's under contract for another 3 years, completely team control at like under $7 million total. That's insane.
You know what? He's just pulling a dad because Scotty went underpaid for the first 9 years of his career as well. Like father, like son.
You know what? This is not his first. That's right, because he spent time with the Lakers. Remember?
So that's true. Yeah.
So you just have him completely under team control though for the next 3 years for like $7 million, maybe $8 million. I think you'd be okay. I'm just trying to think of like any other names that would be, because I think that's probably what they need, and it doesn't need to be on the level of Kobe White or LaMelo Ball, or even a Derek White.
Oh, I have something. I don't know if he's interested in a return to Houston. He's a free agent. Chris Paul.
Ooh. And man, the way he played in San Antonio last year is perfect. Where it's like he dominated the ball when you needed him to, but he shot it really well off the catch from three.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I see. So he and KD and James Harden and Russell Westbrook have all like switched teams so many times. I'm unsure. Like Durant and CP have never played together, right?
No, I don't think so.
Right.
No.
That's. I would like to see that.
I was
unsure if I had seen it before, but regardless, I want to see it again then.
At that point, though, like your offense is all of a sudden very beholden to these two ancients by NBA standards, which would make me a little. Does Malik Monk do enough for you or not enough as a passer?
No, I really, really like Malik Monk, and I think the growth he saw as a playmaker over the past few years has been tremendous. But I don't know if that's something that carries with him outside of that specific system and organization.
That's fair. I'm just like trying to think of like low to mid end names here, like nothing too crazy.
Well, I mean, so Tyus Jones played with KD last year in Phoenix. Tyus, I think, would kind of fit what we're talking about.
At that point, I might be more interested. As a game manager for sure. Him, or maybe even Trey Jones, if you don't care about the shooting limitations as much.
I mean, the Rockets didn't exactly have great floor spacing last year. I know they got KD now, but I mean, why go down on shooting? Like, you always want someone who can shoot.
What about, I mean, you mentioned him, and I sometimes don't think he's enough of just a playmaker, but we saw him run a lot more pick and rolls last year. Ayo Dosunmu.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate that.
That wouldn't be a bad one.
You can probably get both Kobe and Ayo, honestly, because of the contract situation, because we talked about it.
Then you just need all these guys getting paid soon.
Well,
that would be
yeah.
Ooh, what about... Because they do have enough. I know you're going to say that Boston's not going to look to trade him because he's so cheap. Like Peyton Pritchard?
Oh, yeah. Boston's not going to look to trade him, sir.
I mean, if they're going through 2 gap years, you have to at least listen.
Sure,
they'll listen on Jaylen Brown, but not Peyton Pritchard. That's your line.
No. But like the guy is earning less than 5% of the salary cap, right? Like he's such a good contract, and they're not like if I'm Boston, I'm only trading Peyton Pritchard if I'm hitting like the big red reset button. And I don't think they are.
What about, does he do enough? And I don't know how much he costs in free agency, and then you get hard cap and a sign and trade. Malcolm Brogdon, Another guy
Yeah.
with injury concerns, though.
Yeah,
But I feel like
injuries
he would be
concerns,
good.
but like in terms of who he is as a player, yes. Immediately, yes.
I think I've decided it needs to be Scottie Pippen Jr. I think he'd be the
I
perfect
think
addition.
that's a perfectly reasonable name. Yeah. Dad was a Rocket too.
The other, I don't know if you have anything else that you want to get to. Happy to talk about that. The one other thing was I've kind of wondered though if Durant on his next team. I'm not saying he's going to accept like a 2-year, $60 million deal or something, but are we entirely convinced that like he's not going to go to the Rockets and sign a sub-max extension just to make things a little. They'll still have to make some decisions on guys who are extension eligible and whether to keep them, but could make it more manageable for them as you're looking at the Şengün deal is now kicking in. You're going to have the Kevin Durant deal. What are you paying Fred VanVleet next year? You have Amen Thompson's going to be extended. You have two other guys who are extension eligible right now. And when you look at the way that it wasn't specifically the Rockets because he actually had 4 teams on his list, but the Knicks said no, reportedly. But like he kind of ensured that they didn't have to give up a ton to get him. And so it does feel like he's kind of thinking with the foresight in mind of I still want to be somewhere that has enough around me because I just spent the past couple years in Phoenix on a team that did not have enough around me because they gave up so much to get me.
I mean, look, we have to be honest here. Has he earned enough throughout his career? We're only coming off on a $500 million in NBA contracts.
He's made $500 million in NBA contracts. So
$447.8 million. We're coming out on $500 million. So you know what? And our common mutual friend here, Brian Toporek, has made this point for years, where he's basically said at some point the money just becomes so vast and so aggressive in sheer volume that eventually you're going to see some guy say, look, 60 or 30 million or 60 million, I don't give a flying fuck because I'm sitting there with 600 million in my back for the career. Like, or perhaps we're all wrong and he's like, give me all the bread possible.
Or maybe it's something like, does he get like the max in the first year and then it's like it can drop by 40% year over year? Is that the max? What is it now in the new CBA? Like maybe
actually don't know the answer to that, but it can drop a substantial amount, yes.
So maybe it's something like that. But my prediction would be, this is the only reason I'm saying is I think he ends up signing less than a max extension. I think that's what ends up happening here.
That'd be nice though. I mean, I always think that's a good sign for older players to like make it a little bit easier on their teams because like we've talked about before, you know, the Dame contracts, the old man contracts, they're just so rough on teams, especially now that the aprons have been introduced. If KD came to the Rockets and said, look, let's just get this extension over with, I'm willing to take, I don't know, the fun max, something along those lines, that's how you do it.
And I think that would, you think he's going to get the max?
I don't think he'll say the fun max.
He'll
be some, yeah.
Yeah, well, the fun max would be, what would that end up being? So if I said, do you think he's going to get over 50 as an average annual value?
Yeah.
My bold prediction would be that he gets 51 or lower, just to give myself a little wiggle room over 50. But you're right. It's like if he just went and he had 2 years and 100, and this is not like all the money he made off the court. But look, it's a free market. The players should make as well. I guess it's not a free market because of the salary cap. But like, if they're going to give him the max, he should absolutely do it. But if you're Houston, like, by the way, if he decided, this is also a price you're okay paying because we know how Kevin Durant seems to like grade on the people or on his teams, or he gets tired of them. This is like kind of an opportunity cost that if he did leave after a season, you're like, all right, well, we tried. It was not the end of the world.
Yeah, you didn't. Here's the thing: you can make a realistic case that even if things just blow up mid-season and he only spends half a year, you're looking at what you relinquish and you went, worth a gamble. That's fine. I mean, yeah, okay, the 10th pick, that's going to sting a little bit, especially if it's Colin Murray Boyles, because I fucking love that dude. But outside of that, like, yeah, there's no downside to this.
I think the highest praise I could give it from my end is I always expected that if Houston or another team traded for Kevin Durant, I would like it for that team based off what they had to give up. I didn't. I liked it even more than I expected from Houston's perspective than I would have predicted. I would have assumed there was either more first round picks in there, or I honestly thought just because he's not that he's superfluous, but that we've talked about him now, they might have to make a decision on him. I thought it would be like Jabari Smith Jr. number 10 and salary. And because you know how I feel about Jabari, that would have just given me, I still would have been okay with it, I think, for Houston, but they didn't even have to do that. And you get off of what I think was, even if you don't think Jalen Green's a bad contract, he was clearly, of all the contracts on the books, the worst contract for Houston. So you got off the toughest to move of that. And just, man, to get back to the basketball, like Durant and Şengün, the stuff you could do with that, Durant and Amen Thompson, the interplay between those two. And I'm calling the prediction now too. I firmly believe that this trade is going to end up, unless they go out and make another move, I think this opens up the runway for Reed Shepherd to do some damage next year.
I had a feeling you'd end on that one. Yeah.
Do you have anything else on this trade?
No, I think we're good.
Can you tell everyone where they can find you and all the fantastic work that you do?
Absolutely. You can find me over at Yahoo Sports, over at Forbes, and I have a podcast called the NBA Podcast that you might be listening to right now, depending on which feed you're listening to. And in case you speak Danish, you can go in and check out Buzzer Beater.
Until next time, and as always, we leave you with the shout out to the one, the only, the future championship winning floor general of the Houston Rockets, Mr. Frank Ntilikina.